7 signs your vibration is shifting to the 5th dimension. Have you ever felt like something is changing deep within you? Like the world around you is no longer the same, yet nothing has physically changed. Maybe you sense an invisible force guiding you, nudging you towards a reality you can't quite grasp yet. If you're experiencing this, you might be shifting into the 5th dimension. But what does that even mean? We live in a world governed by the 5 senses: what we see, hear, touch, smell, and taste. But beyond this physical realm, there are higher dimensions of existence, places of deeper awareness, of heightened consciousness, where reality bends and the impossible becomes possible. Most people are trapped in the 3rd dimensional mindset, where fear, materialism, and limitation dominate. But maybe you are feeling the pull towards something greater, something beyond the ordinary. You are awakening, your vibration is shifting, and if you recognize these 7 signs, your soul is already ascending into the 5th dimension.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first sign is a profound sense of detachment. You might find that things that used to matter, money, status, validation, don't hold the same weight anymore. Not because you don't care, but because you see through the illusion. You begin to understand that everything in this world is temporary, and chasing external validation is like trying to hold on to water. It slips through your fingers. Have you noticed yourself letting go of things you once obsessed over? Maybe relationships that drained you no longer have a hold on you. Maybe you've stopped reacting to negativity the way you used to. It's not indifference, it's wisdom. You are learning that nothing outside of you can complete you. The second sign is an increased sensitivity to energy. Suddenly, you can feel the emotions of others more deeply. You walk into a room, and you immediately sense whether the energy is light or heavy. You pick up on people's true intentions, even when they say all the right words. This is because, in the 5th dimension, communication is less about language and more about vibration. You no longer just hear people, you feel them. This can be overwhelming at first. You might find yourself needing more solitude, avoiding large crowds, or feeling drained after being around negativity for too long. But this is a gift, not a curse. Your intuition is sharpening. You are beginning to navigate the world through energy, not just logic. The third sign is an unshakable inner peace, even in chaos. While the world around you may be in turmoil, news cycles filled with fear, people caught up in drama, you remain centered. It's not that you don't care. It's that you don't care. It's that you no longer allow external circumstances to dictate your inner state. You start understanding that peace is not something you find, it's something you create. You become like a still lake, untouched by the storms above. And this is where your power grows. Because when you are no longer swayed by fear, you become unstoppable. But here's the question: if you were given the choice to live in permanent peace, never affected by external chaos, would you take it? Or do you still find some part of you addicted to the drama, the highs and lows? Because the truth is, many people unconsciously cling to suffering. Are you ready to let go? The silent transformation, when reality begins to shift before your eyes, there comes a moment in your spiritual journey when the world around you no longer feels the same. It looks the same, the people are the same, and yet something is profoundly different. It's as if you've stepped outside of the script that everyone else is following, and you're now watching the play rather than being lost in it. This is the moment your vibration begins to transcend the limits of the 3rd dimension, and you start slipping into a new reality, one where time moves differently, where synchronicities become the norm, and where you begin to understand that everything you once believed was set in stone is actually fluid, ever-changing, and deeply connected to your own consciousness. You might notice that time no longer feels linear. Some days feel stretched, as if you've lived an entire lifetime within 24 hours. Other times, weeks pass by in what feels like a blink. This isn't your imagination. As your vibration rises, your perception of time shifts because time as we know it is a construct of the third dimension. In the higher dimensions, time is fluid, it bends and stretches according to your state of consciousness. When you are fully present, time slows. When you are lost in thought, time speeds up. But what happens when you begin to master this? When you realize that time responds to your awareness, not the other way around, reality itself begins to bend in ways that most people would dismiss as coincidence. Synchronicities, those strange, perfectly timed events, start occurring so frequently that you can no longer write them off as chance. You think of someone, and they call you. You ask for guidance, and a random stranger speaks the exact words you needed to hear. You feel lost, and suddenly, a book falls off a shelf with the answer you were seeking. These moments are not random, they are signs that you are aligning with the flow of the universe. But here's the paradox: when you truly start shifting to the fifth dimension, you stop being surprised by these synchronicities. You stop calling them coincidences because you realize they are simply how reality works when you are in alignment. You no longer see yourself as separate from the universe. Instead, you understand that your thoughts, emotions, and energy are constantly shaping the events of your life. Have you ever had a moment where you felt like you were in the right place at the right time? Almost as if something greater was guiding you. What if that wasn't luck? What if you were simply moving in harmony with the unseen forces that have always been there, waiting for you to notice? Another sign that your vibration is shifting is the dissolving of rigid beliefs. You start questioning everything you once assumed to be true. Things you were taught about success, about love, about happiness, none of them seem to fit anymore. You begin to realize that reality is not black and white, that truth is not a fixed concept, and that what you once defended so passionately was just a temporary perspective. This can be unsettling at first. If nothing is absolute, then what can you trust? The answer is simple: yourself. Not the conditioned self that was shaped by society, but the deeper, intuitive self that has been whispering to you all along. And when you start trusting yourself, something incredible happens. Fear loses its grip on you. Fear is the glue that holds the third dimension together. It's what keeps people trapped in cycles of suffering, chasing illusions, and doubting their own power. But what happens when fear no longer controls you? You become free. You stop making decisions based on anxiety, and instead you start acting from a place of clarity and inner knowing. For many, this is the most uncomfortable part of the transformation, because when fear fades, so do the excuses. You can no longer blame others for your unhappiness. You can no longer pretend you are powerless. You are forced to take full responsibility for your energy, your choices, your reality, and that is both terrifying and liberating. But here's a question most people never ask themselves: if you had no fear, none at all, what would you do differently? How would you live? Who would you become? Because that version of you already exists. You are simply stepping into it. The awakening within, when the illusion crumbles and truth emerges, there comes a point in your journey when you realize that the world you once knew was only a fragment of reality. It's like waking up from a dream, only to realize you were never fully asleep. The things that used to define you, your job, your status, your relationships, start to feel like roles you've been playing rather than who you truly are. The illusion begins to crumble, and what remains is something raw, something real. At first, this can feel disorienting. You might feel disconnected from the people around you, as if you're no longer speaking the same language. Conversations that once excited you now feel empty. The endless pursuit of material success seems hollow. The things that used to trigger you no longer have the same power. It's not that you've become numb, it's that you've become aware. Aware that so much of what people chase in this world is built on fear, on conditioning, on the belief that something outside of them will complete them. But you are starting to see through this. You are starting to understand that everything you've ever searched for has always been within you. And that realization changes everything. Because when you stop seeking happiness in the external world, you begin to cultivate a peace that is unshakable. This shift doesn't mean you no longer engage with the world. In fact, you may find yourself more present than ever before. But now, you engage from a place of wholeness rather than lack. You no longer need validation because you recognize your own worth. You no longer need control because you trust the flow of life. You no longer hold on to people out of fear of being alone because you have discovered the depth of your own presence. And then something incredible happens. You start to attract different experiences, different people, different opportunities. Not because you are forcing it, but because your vibration has changed. You are no longer operating from the frequency of fear, doubt, or scarcity. You are radiating a new energy, one of trust, of clarity, of alignment. And the universe responds to that. Have you ever noticed how, when you are deeply at peace, things seem to fall into place effortlessly? The right people appear at the right time. The answers you've been seeking come to you in unexpected ways. Obstacles that once felt impossible to overcome dissolve as if they were never real to begin with. This is not magic, it is the natural result of operating from a higher state of consciousness. In the third dimension, people believe they have to fight, struggle, and suffer to get what they want. In the fifth dimension, you realize that the greatest power comes from surrender. Not surrender in the sense of giving up, but surrender in the sense of allowing life to unfold, allowing yourself to move with the current rather than against it, allowing the universe to guide you rather than forcing things into place. And yet, this is one of the hardest lessons to learn, because we have been conditioned to believe that control equals security, that if we just plan enough, work hard enough, or worry enough, we can prevent bad things from happening. But have you ever noticed that the more you try to control life, the more resistance you face? The more you hold on, the more things slip through your fingers. Let this be your reminder: life is not meant to be controlled. It is meant to be experienced. The moment you release the need to force outcomes, you open yourself up to possibilities you could never have planned for. You step into the unknown, not with fear, but with curiosity. You begin to trust the intelligence of the universe rather than the limitations of the mind. And in doing so, you unlock a new way of being, one where joy is not something you chase, but something you embody. But here's a question that will challenge you: if you were to fully trust life, to trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it's meant to, what would you stop worrying about? Because the truth is, most of the things you worry about never actually happen. And even when challenges arise, you always find a way through them. So what if, instead of exhausting yourself with fear, you redirected that energy into faith? Not blind faith, but the kind of faith that comes from deep inner knowing. The kind of faith that says, I may not see the full picture yet, but I know I am being guided. Because you are. You always have been. The question is, are you willing to listen? Becoming the light when you realize you were never lost there comes a moment in every awakening where the search ends. Not because you have found all the answers, but because you realize there was never anything to find, only something to remember. The journey was never about becoming something new. It was always about peeling away the layers of illusion, dissolving the conditioning, and stripping away everything that was never truly you. And when all of that fades, what remains? The pure essence of your being. The light that has always been within you, waiting for you to see it. This is where everything changes. You stop trying to fix yourself because you realize you were never broken. The idea that you were flawed, that you needed to be better, was part of the illusion. You were conditioned to believe that something was missing, that you had to prove your worth through accomplishments, through validation, through external success. But now you see the truth: your worth was never in question. It was only your belief in your own incompleteness that kept you trapped. And the moment you release that belief, freedom rushes in. You no longer seek validation from the outside world because you recognize that your existence, your very presence, is enough. You stop fearing the unknown because you finally understand that the unknown is not something to be avoided. It is where life truly begins. The mind clings to the past and fears the future, but the soul trusts. The soul knows that every step forward is guided, even when you cannot see the full path. And this is where something extraordinary happens. You become the light. Not in an abstract, poetic sense, but in a very real, tangible way. Your presence begins to affect those around you. People feel a sense of peace in your energy, even if they don't understand why. You no longer need to convince anyone of anything because truth radiates from you effortlessly. You no longer react to negativity the way you used to because you see it for what it is: misunderstood pain, unconscious fear, misplaced energy. And instead of being pulled into it, you hold space for it without being consumed by it. This is power. Not the kind of power that dominates or controls, but the kind of power that transforms without force. The kind of power that comes from simply being. And yet, this is where the real test begins. Because when you reach this place, the world will still try to pull you back into old patterns. People may not understand you. Some may even resist your transformation because your growth challenges their limitations. When you step into the fifth dimension, you are no longer playing by the rules of the third. And that can be uncomfortable for those who are still attached to the old paradigm. You may find yourself standing between two worlds, the old and the new. The old world is familiar, it's predictable. It operates on fear, scarcity, and control. The new world is unknown, it requires trust, surrender, and expansion. Again and again, you will be asked, which reality do you choose? The choice is not always easy. There will be moments when you feel alone, moments when you wonder if it would be simpler to go back to the way things were, to fit in, to follow the crowd, to silence the voice inside you that is calling you to something greater. But deep down, you already know the truth. You cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unknow what you now know. The old world may call to you, but it no longer fits. The version of you that once thrived in that world no longer exists. And so, you walk forward even when the path is unclear. But here's the secret: the path is not something you find. It is something you create with every step you take. And the more you trust, the more life begins to reveal itself in ways you never imagined. You start to notice beauty in places you once overlooked. The way sunlight filters through the trees. the way the wind moves through the leaves, the way a stranger's smile can shift the energy of an entire moment. You begin to feel a deep connection to everything around you: the earth, the sky, the stars. You no longer feel separate from life, you feel woven into it, inseparable from it. And then something even more profound happens. You realize that life is not something happening to you. It is something happening through you. You are not a passive observer in this reality. You are a creator. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your energy, they shape the world around you. And as you step deeper into this awareness, you begin to consciously choose what kind of reality you wish to create. Do you choose fear or love? Do you choose resistance or flow? Do you choose limitation or expansion? Most people spend their whole lives believing they are powerless, that they are victims of circumstance. But you are beginning to see that this was never true. You are powerful beyond measure. And the moment you stop doubting that, everything shifts. But here's the final question, the one that only you can answer. Are you ready to fully step into this? Because the doorway is already open. It has always been open. All that's left is for you to walk through.